It took years to get started.
And when it finally did start, it gobbled up millions of dollars. Then it stopped, with much work still undone. And the work that was done, the work that cost millions of dollars, is now already falling apart. It is the road to nowhere. And News 13 investigative reporter Larry Barker found that the end remains nowhere in sight.
This is 2005. What are they doing living at the end of a 40-mile dirt road? That just doesn't happen to people unless they live on Indian reservations.
You think paving N55 is as difficult as getting a man on the moon?
Pretty much.
In my whole life, I've never seen a road that was built this way.
For folks living in Alamo, this dirt road means everything. You see, when you talk about the middle of nowhere, you're literally talking about Alamo. It's a remote, isolated community on the Navajo Reservation. And even though some 2,000 people live here, there are no tourist attractions, no jobs, no grocery stores, not even a post office. For this community, the road out is a lifeline. As the crow flies, it's just 55 miles from Albuquerque. But the only reliable way of getting to work in the city is a 3-hour drive down to Magdalena, over to Socorro, up to Albuquerque. But there's a more direct route at half the distance. Welcome to N55, a rough, dusty, rutted 40-mile stretch of dirt road so obscure, it's not even on the map.
When folks in Alamo get together, is there one thing that they always talk about?
Paving our roads.
35 to 40 years that's being talked about, it's just to pave that road.
For George Apachito and the other Alamo residents who rely on N55 for life's necessities, driving it is a challenge. Often impassable, the road is badly in need of paving. For decades, residents here have been pleading with the BIA and the Navajo Nation to make N55 a paved reality. Jim Nance is an Alamo rancher.
When the politicians come here once every 4 years for election, they hear about it and then they take off. Well, they take off, but they don't drive on this road. They go back the other way.
They come down here, talk, but there's nothing being done.
The BIA planned to pave the 40-mile stretch in 4 phases. It looked like N55 would finally become reality. So in 2002, BIA contractors completed Phase 1 of the project, paving 8.6 miles. Now, Phase 2 was scheduled to begin 3 years ago. The people of Alamo are still waiting for those asphalt trucks to come back. And you don't need to be a road engineer to notice the $8 million paving project is already falling apart. Unusual soil conditions have created huge cracks, and portions of the roadway are buckling.
There's about 4 places where if you're going the speed limit, your vehicle, all 4 wheels will leave the ground. You'll hit such a bump that all 4 wheels will be in the air.
The pavement is in such bad shape that whole sections had to be ripped out. That was years ago. And there has been no repair. Why? No money. If you live on the reservation, you learn crumbling roads are a fact of life. The Navajo Nation is crisscrossed with 6,000 miles of rutted roadways, most in desperate need of attention. But because Congress allocates so few dollars to reservation road repair, only the worst of the worst get fixed. Kevin Gover headed up the BIA under President Clinton.
The reality is that you're fortunate if it happens at all, that if it happens, it's going to take a long time. And for the road then to stay in good condition is more extraordinary still.
The Navajo Nation decides which roads on the reservation to build and maintain. But Alamo is a long way from Window Rock, longer still if you have to get there using N55.
I think, frankly, it's just inattention to it. I think that it hasn't been a priority for the BIA or for the Navajo Nation or for anybody else, and so it hasn't gotten paved.
Alamo is out of sight and out of mind, for the federal government, for the state, even for the tribe in many respects.
Nobody is predicting just when the BIA will actually finish paving the remaining 31 miles of dirt track. Building a road on the reservation is complicated. Very complicated. Irvin Bekas is a BIA highway engineer.
If I lived on a road on the reservation, it might be 30, 40, 50, 60 years before they fix my road. Isn't that true?
Yeah, you might not even, it might never be done. That's how the projects are done in Indian country. It's way different than anywhere else in the United States.
N55 winds through the Navajo Reservation, private land, state land, BLM land, and the Laguna Reservation. Before construction can begin, each entity must sign off on giving the BIA legal right-of-way. Senator Jeff Bingaman is now involved and says federal stimulus money is on its way to Alamo to kickstart the paving project. Construction could begin sometime next year. I said could.
We've been talking about this generation after generation. Our grandfathers were talking about this. Our dads were talking about this. Our uncles. The previous leaders have talked about this. We're still sitting here with only 8.6 done.
Do you think this thing will be paved in your lifetime?
Yeah, I plan to live long.
Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.
The estimate is that it will cost about $60 million to get the job done.
I bet that road's really a mess when they have rains like we've had.
Yeah, they had some rain in that area earlier today. They're not getting it right now, but in other places, it's a dark and stormy night.